All right, we're at 2 minutes after 11. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm assuming people are going to jump in as they jump in. But as always, I appreciate everybody's attendance and thanks for being here. Glad to see you all. I know a lot of you are either team leaders or aspiring team leaders. So I love doing this particular session or set of sessions about leadership and how to be an effective leader. Primarily because we all want to be leaders, but we all have a different concept or a different understanding of what it takes to be a leader or what it means to be a leader. Some of us, as we begin to, and I'll use it in the real estate context, we begin to grow our business, and our business becomes so successful that we need to take on others, and those others are folks that can help us to push our vision and our dream along. And we've talked about this in previous sessions in terms of first step to being a team lead is to define your vision so that others have a path to follow. But when we talk about actual leadership, and we talk about, what does it mean to be a leader? What does it take to be a leader? That involves a little bit of work. I mean, if you think about some of the biggest and the smallest companies on the planet, they all have a leader. They all have someone who has, created a path for others to follow, and they have directives along the way. But that being said, if we define leadership in that fashion, we also look at, what type of leader am I? And more specifically, what style of leadership do I employ? And certainly you can employ multiple styles, but today that's what we're going to talk about. Part of being a leader is also a lot like what we do in our real estate world, which is we create relationships of trust. We get people who are similar to us or have a similar mindset. And, we've got to create aspects of trust. They've got to trust that you've created a path that they can follow, and a path that's, while it may be challenging, is easy enough and clear from a directive standpoint. Some of the ways we create trust, just briefly, are, honesty. Just telling the truth sometimes creates trust all the way around. Let's face it. We're all of an age, in our lives, if we're older than 21, to where we can see through when people are BSing us. So, just being honest right off the top of the bat is, what it takes to get people to trust you. And being predictable is another one, showing that you're consistent. If your vision is super erratic, and that means today you're wanting to climb the mountain, but tomorrow, no, let's swim the river instead. No, better yet, let's fly an airplane. That's pretty inconsistent. It's pretty non-predictable, and it's hard for people to follow you because it's so much rapid change. Now, that's not to say pivoting and adjusting to changes or seeing the road ahead that might be perilous, and making corrections isn't something you should do. Absolutely, that's something you should do. Pivot quickly to avoid damage, all those things, but certainly being predictable. So if you're blue today, be blue tomorrow, okay? Building rapport, that's kind of goes without saying, is you've got to know the people who are working with you and for you. So one of the quickest, most effective ways in terms of being a solid team leader is recognizing the people who you're leading, the people who are on your team that are following along in the direction and the scope and the shape of your business. Obeying rules. Now, what do I mean by that when I say that? More specifically, it's being what they call predictably lawful. Team leaders who are corrupt, and I'm just saying this out loud and honestly, I think most of you know I've been in this business a long time. I've witnessed, particularly in the early 2000s, lots of criminal behavior. I've seen whole companies go to federal prison from that last market just because the lure and the temptation of money kept them in states other than honesty, other than lawful behavior. And so, people will follow you if they know you're on the side of right. Now, that's not to say sometimes we may get into a gray area, and not because it's nefarious, but because it's necessary. But that is to say, if you're lawful and you're obeying rules as it's customary, then you're going a long way in exercising your prowessness as a leader. The other thing, and I'll stop here, is keeping your promise. Do what you say you're going to do as a leader, as a mentor, as someone who's guiding someone else. While people are following you and your vision, they're also on their own journey as well. So if you can keep your promises and do the things you say you're going to do, right? That's one of the principles of accountability. You've all heard that word multiple times, particularly from me. One of those things to get people motivated and moving in the path that they should be going is, being held accountable. And that accountability is what drives us all, right? Whether it's your family or friends, or, it's that, or your colleagues or your coworkers. That's what drives people forward, is accountability. I need to do the things that I said I'm going to do. That's how I start to see production, growth, and success. So keep those things at the forefront. All right, let's get started into today's presentation. So is anybody familiar with emotional intelligence? Has anybody heard that term before? Or a better question, who has not heard that term before, emotional intelligence? Go ahead. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, and I'm a huge fan of this, and we're not talking about your IQ, in other words, how smart you are. We're talking about more about how emotionally centered you are. And that's a difficult thing to achieve sometimes when we're adults, and particularly as we look at becoming leaders. We're products of our environment. I'm sure you've all heard that before, right? Our family of origin is what kind of shaped us, what guided us, what created us as an adult, at least in the early stages. That family of origin is the belief systems that your family imposed upon you, the styles and behaviors in which they enacted in order to exist from a day to day, how they created conflict resolution, things like that. And sometimes those family of origin systems stay with us a super long time as we're adults, because we look at those as our founding principles, our guiding beacon, so to speak. And so sometimes we're so unwavering in terms of how we move forward that we don't veer off and see if there's other opportunities that may be more effective as we look at becoming more fruitful and effective adults. So emotional intelligence, there's a gentleman by the name of Daniel Goleman, who's a psychologist. I first read this book, I'm going to say, 25 years ago, maybe longer. Great book, great read. His name is Daniel Goleman, Goleman. If you've not heard of the book, definitely. And so he has a book called Emotional Intelligence. Definitely read it. As a leader, you should be reading something every single day, right? Being a leader is not just about leading others. It's also about our own personal growth and development, because the more proficient we become as human beings, the more effective we're going to be as leaders. But Daniel Goleman, Richard Boyancich, and Annie McKee wrote a book called Primal Leadership. And they described 6 different styles of leading. And they have different effects on the emotional targets of the followers. So, when we look at defining who we are, we look at what is our style of leadership. What are we effectively doing? So keep in mind that these are styles of leadership. They're not types of leadership. When we talk about types of leadership, we get into a different category, and I'll cover that in another session. But today, when we're talking about styles of leadership, any leader can use any style, or they can, throw in a bunch. We all know that different situations call for different measures, or, different ways on how we execute in terms of how we're interacting with other people. So when we're talking about styles, we're really talking about things that can be combined, a good mix and match to accommodate any situation that we're in. Okay. So the first one, or the first style of leadership, is called a visionary leader. So what is a visionary leader? The visionary leader moves people towards a shared vision, telling them where to go, but not how to get there. And this is a better way, or a different way of motivating them to struggle forward. sometimes we want to be, because it's our vision, we want to be the kind of leader that does everything, right? And we give up very little control in terms of the path to where we're trying to get to. It's our vision. No, I wanted it done this way. No, it should be right on the line, and yours is just adjacent to the line, things like that. We've used words in the past like micromanaging or failing to delegate, when we talk about that style. But a visionary leader is someone who hires the best people for the job. I'm not going to tell you what to do in the job, but I'm hiring you because I believe you are the best person to fulfill the task at hand. So a visionary leader tells them where we're going, but not how to get there. And again, it allows people to utilize their own resources. They start to dig deep within themselves and to define who they are in this path. Keep in mind, even as a leader, no matter what style or what type of leader you are, you always want to encourage others to develop their own arsenal of tools as they execute, as they problem solve, all those kinds of things, because those are the things that help growth and development. If we stay focused with the fact that people are also on their own journey, just as they're walking with you or traveling in your direction, it helps them to grow and develop. And the more leaders we develop as we lead, the better the experience is for everyone. A visionary leader openly shares information. So giving knowledge, and we know knowledge is a type of currency or power. So, by giving others knowledge, they're bound to experience success in a much more effective and quicker path. Another thing when we talk about the visionary leader is they can fail when trying to motivate more experienced experts or peers. The reason why that is that as we're executing on your vision or sharing what that looks like, other people can be sometimes narrow-minded or pigeonholed in their thinking because of their experience. I think we've all gone through that with people in our lives. Someone who may be as experienced or more experienced than you tend to be more closed-minded because they think they've reached the pinnacle and they already know that thing. That is, by the way, why people start to decline more rapidly as they look for paths of success, is because they're not open to the opportunity of challenging even the things that they're sure that they know, right? We're constantly staying open to new ideas, new thoughts, new tactics, new strategies, so that we can always make sure that we have the most updated arsenal of tools. If you think about it, think about how often, in your daily life, your software gets updated, your phone or, your subscriptions or things like that. That's kind of that thing of why, some experts or more experienced people tend to not respond to a visionary leader, is because they think they have all the answers. A visionary leader, it's best for when you're kind of creating a new direction. And again, for some of the same reasons I just mentioned, most of you are new in terms of either developing a team or being a team lead. So this is the perfect style. Again, it's your vision. You're creating and carving a path to where people can follow where you're trying to go. And that's ultimately what you want as a team lead. We all have a common direction in this business. We may have a few attributes, a few nuances, a few features that others don't have, but essentially we're all going in the same way because of the nature of what we do as a business. Overall, it's a strong impact. I'm sorry, folks. It's a strong impact on the climate of the business of being a visionary leader. We can truly guide and adjust on a daily basis when we kind of practice this style of leadership, the visionary leader. Another style of leader is a coaching leader. I think I kind of fall between both visionary and coaching, just in my personal style or what I've developed over the years. I've certainly exercised, probably all of these 6 options or used them all simultaneously in some situations. But I'm more of a coaching leader. And I think I always have been, just kind of based on principle. But the coaching leader connects wants to organizational goals, holding long conversations that reach beyond the workplace, helping people find strengths and weaknesses, tying these to career aspirations and actions. Now, if you think about that first sentence, it's really more like what a visionary leader is in that sense too, because you're recognizing that others have skills and abilities that you're cultivating and helping to shape and mold so that they can be whole and clear as to what their personal paths are as well. They're good at delegating challenging assignments, demonstrating faith that demands justification, and which leads to high levels of loyalty. Loyalty and trust kind of fit in the same bucket to me. Loyalty and trust are kind of part and parcel or hand in hand with each other. People become loyal when they trust you, when they know that you're creating the best experience and your plan is to not to do them harm. Unfortunately, some of us live from a self-centered point of view. We call it our vision, but we are very self-centered and don't care who gets exploited along the way in our path to success. And that doesn't create loyalty. I think most of you have, experienced that in your life. You've either been highly loyal to someone or you've realized that you could give a crap about someone, because they didn't care about you. So why should you care about them? That's not the style of leadership I think any of you are looking to employ. I think you are all looking to, have a loyal following, not cult-like, but people who are loyal to you, who will, live by the sword, die by the sword for you, that kind of thing. And that's historic of any leader. I mean, you could look at a micro, like what's going on in our country. There's a level of loyalty that exists based on circumstance and things. And there are folks who would just assume, have people fall in the ocean based on how their beliefs are. Done badly, when we're talking about the coaching leader, it feels like micromanaging. Sometimes we're so specific in the directions we're giving. And if we keep in mind, and this really falls into that emotional intelligence bucket, the truth of life is we're not all on the same level. We talk about equality a lot, but the reality is there are things that each of us possess that others may not have, or we possess a stronger ability to execute on certain things based on who we are, based on how we absorb information, based on how we execute, and it's not equal and it's not across the board. Sometimes we set our expectations in such a way that it's impossible for those who are in our charge to execute, primarily because those people who are in our charge may not be on the same level that we are. And it's not about intelligence. It's literally about lifestyle. I talked briefly about family of origin and how people see the world and accommodate. And if we keep in mind, there is no right and wrong, right? We may have the same experience. We may be in the same room, seeing the same thing, but our perceptions are going to be different based on who we are. So that's where coaching leadership can become destructive. Is because we make assumptions that everybody is the same, when in fact we may have to spend a little bit more time with this person before they actually get what it is. Okay. So we want to be cognizant of what that looks like. That's why, early on I said it's important to build rapport and understand who those people are on your team. When we look at the overall concept of team building, that is one of the most, crucial phases that gets missed, is the fact of, as we look at being leaders, we have to take our friend hat off. We're not necessarily looking for people to like us. And I know that sounds a little harsh, because in a business where we're constantly dealing with rejection, of course we want people to like us, right? That's kind of who we are by nature. We want people to like us. But the truth of it is, as a leader, you may be charged with making some unpopular or difficult decisions. And if you're continually worried about someone liking you, the likelihood of you being successful as a leader is going to start to diminish, because you have a different agenda that you're exercising. Okay. It's best the coaching leader is best used when individuals need to build long-term capabilities. If you think about everything you're doing to build your real estate brand, to customize your identity, to really get a presence in the markets and the neighborhoods that you plan to work, You are wanting a team that's long term. It's very easy to fall into the trap of turnover. There's this old expression, and I still use it to this day, and I still live by this principle, which is slow to hire, quick to fire. Now, what does that mean? Or at least what does it mean for me? I'm very overcautious in terms of people that I bring under my fold, only because people are very good in that front door experience of shining very brightly, right? We all live that mantra of first impressions, right? We all live by first impressions. Well, that's not entirely true from a psychological perspective. People do what's called posturing, which is they say and do the things they think that are most going to engage you. So in other words, they're putting this face on or this identity that's not truly who they are. It's not authentic. And that lack of authenticity sometimes clouds our judgment. We're seeing this shape of something that we think we need, particularly when we're in a rush to get someone on our team because we're either overwhelmed or inundated with work, or we're just anxious to get our project off the ground. So that level of that's a tough one. Yeah, that level of falsity that person is displaying, once they're on your team, it's going to show itself quickly because you can only maintain that level for a very small period of time. Your true self is going to start to break through. So you're always looking to hire individuals that are going to be with you for a long period of time, right? The journey is a long one sometimes, and you want those people to where you're not having to constantly train up. But the quick to fire part is, let's say someone does slip through the cracks, and it does happen, unfortunately, but true. It does happen. You want to be able to pivot and let that person go before it poisons, your journey or disrupts or sabotages where you're trying to go. Again, it has a very high impact, a positive impact on the climate and direction of where you're trying to go as a team leader. Okay. The third type or style, not type, I'm using the wrong word. The third style of leadership is the affiliative leader. The affiliative leader creates people, connections, and thus harmony within the organization. Again, remember I said that, it's not one specific thing that creates you as a leader, one specific style. Many times you're employing multiples, if not all of these in various situations. So the affiliative leader connects people and creates harmony within their team. That kind of speaks to the rapport, right? It's a component. It's not everything, right? Sometimes we can overdo rapport to where we're making it all about, hey guys, let's go to, these team building things, or let's go have drinks or dinner or do these things. And it starts to lose sight because once people feel like there is no hierarchy, and this is true, and I hate to say it, but it's just a fact. When people feel like there is no hierarchy, people tend to respond differently and more singular and less collective, right? I'm going to use a sports analogy. So if you take, no matter what your sport is, but I'll just use, let's call it football for now, American football. In football, you really only have one leader on the field, and that is your quarterback. Not everybody's going to be a quarterback, but it doesn't mean that everyone isn't highly experienced in their roles, right? In order for the quarterback to be successful from an offensive formation, the quarterback has to have people who are covering for him, in other words, blocking intruders who could disrupt or sabotage the plan that is being executed. He has to have people who can also assist in the execution because he can't carry the ball the whole time. He has to give it to others in order to have a completion or success in what they're trying to do. So, you have to be careful when you're creating harmony and rapport to where people don't lose sight of there is a singular vision and everybody has a role. And sometimes that role may not be the lead role or the starring role, so to speak. So it's very collaborative. I'm not saying don't be collaborative, but you have to be very cautious on how you execute that so as not to disrupt what it should be. When done badly, it avoids emotionally distressing situations such as negative feedback. Done well, it's used alongside a visionary leadership. So again, just as I was saying about the sports analogy, it's very easy to get people into hurt feeling situations, and that's only because their emotional intelligence isn't accurate. Part of what we talk about when we talk about emotional intelligence is how we deal with situations that are not interpersonal. Sometimes business decisions feel very interpersonal. They feel as though it's about me. And it really isn't about you as an individual. It's not about you as a human being. It's more about your work style or where we're going in terms of direction, how we're going to build this company the way we want to build this company. So when we don't have strong emotional intelligence, we tend to internalize and process situations that challenge us in a very negative way. Okay. Again, you want to use the affiliative or collaborative style of leadership along with visionary leadership. Again, you're hiring the best people to do the job. That's really what it is. But it doesn't mean that everyone is doing the same thing. The affiliative leader is best used for healing rifts and getting through stressful situations. Again, when we can really kind of look at what the person's doing, and this is also where accountability comes into play. We talk about, what they're doing and get them to kind of self-disclose as to what is their role, what are they doing well, what are they not doing well. And it's got a very positive impact on the team or the climate of the team. So, again, most of these leadership styles are very positive. Some have negative aspects to them. And again, it's not like you're going to go out today and go, no, I'm going to be an affiliative leader. I've got a new tongue this morning, so it's just kind of working out the bugs. But, again, these are often used in layers. There's not just one true style. These are used in layers, but these kind of help to define the process which you're executing at any specific time. Okay. The next style of leaders is called a democratic leader. The democratic leader acts to value inputs and commits via participation. So they listen to both sides of the story. They accept both the good news and the bad news, right? They're more like Switzerland. They kind of stay neutral in situations. They tend not to lean one side or the other. I know it's very easy, particularly in close quarters, but with separation, that we tend to lean more towards the negative or the positive. Sometimes we align with negativity because others are feeling the same thing, and it helps us to assuage any negative feelings we may be having because someone else is having them too. So it feels very validating. Whereas positivity is not one of those things, even though it sounds like it should be, it's not one of those things that we always easily identify with. Positivity is also very subjective. Looking at, you can look at anything from a positive nature, but not everybody does that. Sometimes, like we've got sunshine where I am right now, and we haven't had sunshine in a little while, due to the weather conditions in California. But some people look at this and they'll say, yeah, it's sunny now, but it's supposed to rain on Thursday, right? They're seeing the negative before the negative has even happened versus, hey, A, we needed the rain, B, sunshine happens, and weather is cyclical. We all know that. We can't all be basking in sunshine every single day with lots of all the goodness that it brings. So a democratic leader kind of sits in the middle like Switzerland. They process both good and bad news, and they communicate those things effectively. Bad news is part of growth. To be frank, lots of leaders talk about failing forward. There's not a single visionary, a single leader that exists right now or previous that hasn't failed, hundreds of times. You look at someone like Elon Musk. hundreds of times. Jeff Bezos, hundreds of times. And those are just recent folks that, we hear about in our current lexicon. But those folks have failed hundreds of times before they've hit these large plateaus of success. Elon Musk technically is failing now, but failing in a positive way. Just like in the macro, our company Radius, we break things so that we know what works and doesn't work, right? We're constantly challenging the narrative so that we can grow, so that we can be successful, so that we understand what works and doesn't work. Sometimes challenging that can be frustrating. You as a team lead, you may be breaking, your systems to see what works and doesn't work, so that your people can accommodate effectively and grow effectively, right? Look at, so change is necessary. That's why good and bad exist in everybody's universe. It's best used to gain buy-in, being a democratic leader, or when simple input is needed. So oftentimes when change happens, a visionary leader or an affiliative leader will reach out collectively and say, hey, what do you guys think? How do I get input? Or if a change is necessary, a democratic leader will get those to buy in on what the change is. I know this is frustrating. I know these things have happened. I know we did this thing this way before, but the reason we're doing things this way now is, and that's the buy-in part. That's where a democratic leader actually excels in terms of what they do to move the team vision forward. Again, most of these things are positive as we look at how we move our team to a division, to be accepting a vision. And again, as you look at building your team, you want to study character traits. I know a simple tool that, everybody has used at one point, which is a type of a personality inventory, or a temperament sorter more specifically, is like a DISC profile. A DISC profile is a temperament sorter. It doesn't mean it's an absolute. It doesn't mean a D is a high driver. That's who that person is. All of us have characteristics of all of these things at different times. Again, through emotional intelligence, it just really helps to define when we're executing these things and how often, and knowing what's available to you. Again, keeping in mind your family of origin is what shaped and created most of you. Being an adult and an emotionally intelligent adult is what you've achieved on your own post-family of origin. In other words, the tools and the systems that you've learned once you've been out of your parents' house or whoever raised you's home in order to grow and fully function as an adult human being. Okay. We have the pace-setting leadership style. The pace-setting leader builds challenges and exciting goals for people, expecting excellence and often exemplifying it themselves. These are those people who are running right alongside with you. Man, hey, we're going to get there. Give me a shovel. I'm going to dig as hard as you're digging. They'll identify poor performers and demand more of them. If necessary, they'll roll up their sleeves and rescue the situation themselves. Good and bad to a pace-setting leadership style. If it's your vision, certainly you're going to be more invested most of the time than the people who you're leading. It's just a natural fact. It's your vision that they're following, and people will follow you to the ends of the earth. But at the end of the day, it's still your vision. And sometimes people look at levels of inequity when you're kind of doing it right alongside of them, which is great because they're going, man, he or she dug right in just like we did. There was no hierarchical or empirical value set. They're working just as hard as we are. But where the inequity comes in is they look at the end game, the value expectation. Clearly as the visionary, the one who created the path, your payout may tend to be much larger, just depending on what it is. So, you have to be careful when employing or exercising a pace-setting leadership style so as not to belittle or be reductive to those who work for you or work with you. They tend to be low on guidance, expecting people to know what to do. They get short-term results, but over the long term, this style can lead to exhaustion and decline. Again, because it's your vision, you're going to go to the, nth degree. I'm traditionally a workaholic, much to the dismay of my family. My family doesn't understand me at all. They don't understand, especially at this point in my life, why would you do this to yourself? Why would you put this much work on you? And it's just the nature of me. I like to see things build. I like to see things come to fruition, very competitive in that way. So, I identify with some of these things. But, when you're exercising that pace setting leadership, people aren't going to work as hard as you. They're not going to work as long as you. And you're going to start to create start to see levels of frustration in yourself because these folks can only perform to what their capacity is. And, capacity is a difficult thing to measure. My capacity could be high and your capacity could be low for certain things and vice versa. But we don't always understand that. Again, there is a natural inequity or natural inequality just based on who we are and the things that we do. When it's done badly, it lacks emotional intelligence and especially self-management. If you're honest with yourselves as you're building and growing your team and understanding what leadership is all about, people like to be guided. I use this analogy very frequently, which is the fact that when you come to a 4-way stop in the middle of nowhere, how many of you just blow through that 4-way stop at 70 or 80 miles an hour, whatever speed you're doing? Most of us don't. Most of us stop even when no one's around because we're guided and conditioned by behavior. Same thing as when we go into a bank and they have that velvet rope. We tend to follow the velvet rope, even though there may not be anyone in line to speak to a teller. It's part of social and cognitive conditioning that we develop from a very, very, very young age. So most people aren't that self-starter person. They say they are. But if you think about a business like what we're in right now, which is the real estate industry, there's a couple of myths that we constantly dispel. One being, why do people get into real estate? People say, I get into real estate to help people. Well, we kind of know that's not true, right? Because there are other helping, caring, sharing professions that are probably far more rewarding. We get into real estate primarily because there is unlimited money to be had if we do this thing right. I mean, I think everybody can agree on that. And the other reason we get into real estate is to, be independent, not have anybody govern our time or how we execute or what we do on a daily basis. The problem is that most people come from a job environment. And coming from a job environment, we're literally just trading time for money. That's what a job is. We trade time for money. There is no performance or expertise necessary in a job. Now, don't get me wrong. Please don't attack me. I'm not saying you went to school to study all these things and, damn it, I'm skilled and I know how to do these things. No, that's not what I'm saying. Literally, if you think about what you do on a daily basis, if you have a job, is you're trading time for money. You're there for a certain amount of hours, and at the end of the week or end of 2 weeks or end of a month, you get that beautiful thing they call a paycheck, right? With all the FICA taken out, all that good stuff, right? But you get a paycheck. So literally for those hours you shared with someone else, they rewarded you by this thing called a paycheck. And yeah, there are tasks that we do somewhere in there, but we're trading time for money. Whereas a visionary career like real estate, there is no time for money ever. We're never trading time for money. We're truly trading skill and experience or performance, as better stated, for money. So if this week you or your teammates, there was no performance, then there is no paycheck. There is no compensation. And, these kinds of things start to get in our way over and over and over again. So as you're looking at some of these styles, keep some of those things in mind, right? Your team is looking to follow you because you're casting a vision that there will be wealth somewhere down this road that I'm going with this person, namely you as the team leader. When there are no respites of wealth or compensation, they start to get disillusioned. They start to lack trust. The ability to follow you starts to wane because, man, we have gone 60 miles and you told me there would be a burger stop somewhere and we haven't eaten. Where the hell are the burgers? Hey, it's coming. I promise. We're going to get there. There's just all kinds of market conditions going on. And, that's where the pace setting leadership style could be disruptive. Again, if they're not highly emotionally intelligent, they're going to have difficulties. Okay. So that's the pace setting leadership. And it's often, I said, most of these are positive. The pace setting leadership style is more often a negative effect on the climate of your business, primarily because it's often done poorly. We think we're motivating others by having them model or mirror us of what we're doing. But the truth of it is that's only a short-lived, short-term activity. They've got to function within their framework. You have to be able to grow and develop them within that framework so that you can get the best output possible for them. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. And finally, as we look at leadership styles, let's talk about the commanding leader. The commanding leader soothes fears and gives clear directions by his or her powerful stance, commanding and expecting full compliance, agreements not needed. So the difference between full compliance and agreement, I don't care if you want to do this, this is what needs to happen. That's the difference between, full compliance and agreement. Agreement is, well, let's talk about it. Well, I don't like these things. I'm not comfortable with this. That's great. But these are the things we're going to do. Literally, that commanding leadership style is that person who is, you see these people in everyday walks of life that people just naturally gravitate to because their presence is so strong. The commanding leadership style, they need emotional self-control for success and can sometimes seem cold and distant. I know that in that commanding leadership style, and we see that sometimes within the organization, it feels like someone's aloof or they just don't care, or more specifically care about you, which is a long way from the truth. It literally sits more on the ledge of we've all got a job to do. We can celebrate when we get to the end. There's a task. Again, football players, and I use that analogy of sports again, they don't celebrate after each and every play. They don't, hold your hand when something went wrong right smack in the middle of it. They don't take you off to the sideline and coddle you until you feel better and you're ready to come back in. They recognize it's a battle of wills until the end. And that's when the celebration happens. So that's where the commanding leader can sometimes feel like a jerk or, another more colorful word, insert whichever one works best for you. But it's just that they're clear in terms of where they're going in the direction of it. And they don't often take time for niceties. Again, when we're coming clearly from a job mentality, we tend to respond less effectively to the commanding leadership style because we're conditioned to respond to our boss. And sometimes we don't align with our bosses, right? Oh, my boss is such a jerk. They're making me do X, Y, Z. We typically align with people who are also in the same level as we are, and like, yeah, our boss is an X, Y, Z. He made me do this. This happened, blah, blah, blah. But the commanding leadership style, when coupled with the visionary leadership style, is a recipe for success almost every single time. In the best of times of crisis, when you need unquestioned, rapid, and problem-solving techniques with employees who do not respond to other methods, you want a commanding leader who just takes charge and says, look, this is what's going to happen. Are you on board or not? That style of leadership is absolutely necessary in any level of company that you develop. Because if you can't actually have someone execute on what they said they were going to do, remember I said earlier, is do what you promised. Do what you said you're going to do. And the commanding leadership style is the best leadership style to actually pull that out of someone. Okay. Questions on what we covered. Let's open this up for discussion right now. Anybody have anything that they want to share? Questions they may have? Anything they want to add? Everybody good? Okay. Out of everybody who's in our meeting today, what leadership style do you most often identify with? Don't make me pick on you because I'll start to call you. Anybody have anything that they most identify with? Anybody daily practice your emotional intelligence? And like I said, I'm going to pick on you. Angela, how about you? You with me? Julian.
Yes. Hello. Hey.
Hey.
Trying to get my mic off mute there. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, those are some great points. I would have to say that I'm in between the first 1 to 2 styles.
Okay. So you're more visionary and more that's kind of where you identify with, more of a visionary style of leader and more of the coaching style.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't like to hold too tightly to anything because, like you said, when you feel like you've hit that pinnacle or you've really got it nailed, that's where you start to decline. So I try to include and take from a little from here, a little from there, and include as much as possible to be as efficient and productive as possible.
Gotcha. Now, are you running a team right now? Are you planning on running the team soon?
No, not at the moment. I'm actually just going to stick with my broker and learn as much as possible and soak up as much as possible.
Stellar. Yeah, learning and soaking is always a beautiful thing, particularly as we grow and develop in our lives, right?
Right.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Julian. Hey, Michael, what kind of leadership styles do you identify with most often? Michael Ruiz. You with me? And I know we've been having some sticky mics, guys. Not sure why. Do me a favor? Can everybody unmute their mic just for 1 minute, just to make sure everybody can hear me? Just say, "Hey, I'm here." Julian, I got you. Sabri, how about you? Nope. Anil, how about you? Okay, we may be having some sticky mic issues. If we are, we'll get that remedied. All right, guys, that's what I have for us today. If no one has any further questions, as always, I really appreciate you guys taking some time out, participating, spending some time with me today. Don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions. I will cover the different types of leadership, which is different than styles of leadership in our next session. If you guys have some topics that you'd like me to cover when we talk about developing ourselves as leaders, as mentors, as coaches, as we take ourselves down the path of our own personal journeys, definitely reach out to me and I'll make sure I put something together for everybody. Okay. All right, everybody, take care. I will see you in my next session, which is at noon, which is about scripts and dialogues if you care to participate. Look forward to speaking to everybody soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, guys.